we're going to, in just a minute, we're going to talk about why hasn't God already judged America and what's going on.
Well, that is a really good question. As we try to put it in perspective, let's take a look at what God sees when the American flag goes by. He sees a culture that has outlawed his word out of the schools. It's a culture that has forbidden his mention in any public place. It's a culture that has tried to deconstruct every institute that he's put in it. The murder of over 60 million babies murdered in the womb of the mothers. I can't visualize the Lord saluting the flag as it goes by, point one.
Oh.
But the other thing is, for many, many years, at least more than four decades, we would do a talk with an audience, but we always finished with what we called a question-answer period. After we gave them our presentation, the most fun part of the evening was the open question answers. And we could always predict that in the Q&A, as we call it, there's a question that would always come up. Somebody would say, why hasn't God judged America? And we always make allusions to, Billy Graham's clever sound bites, that if God doesn't judge America, he'll have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. A great soundbite. Thomas Jefferson said the same thing back in 1781. I tremble for my country when I recall that God is just and that his justice will not sleep forever. So I used to answer those questions very glibly, calling on Genesis 12, verse 2 and 3. I'll bless them that bless thee, and so on. In other words, I felt very sincerely, and I could prove from the scripture, that what was protecting us from an overdue judgment was our commitment to the Israel's right to exist. And clumsy though it is, and even though we betrayed him many times, our official position was to back Israel. Now I find myself involved for the first time in history where America has withdrawn its support from God's people, from Israel. And so the very thing that I used to use as a defense, as a shield from an overdue judgment, is now gone. You need to understand it's not our job to predict the future. That's called divination. It's prohibited in the Torah. But it is our responsibility to prepare for the coming storms. And the tragedy that I worry about is that the least prepared population on the planet Earth for what's coming, the one that least prepared, is the American citizen. They have absolutely no grasp of what's coming. In Europe, they have a feeling for it because they've lived through these kinds of things. The experience of Germany from 1920 to that's vivid in our family because my grandparents had a restaurant, and they sold the restaurant to retire. By the time the formalities were finished, when it started, they could retire on what the restaurant was worth. When it finally was able to get closed, what they received was enough to buy one loaf of bread. A loaf of bread in 1920 in Germany cost about 1 mark. In 1923, a loaf of bread cost 760 million marks.
Oh my goodness.
Now, the point is, in all kinds of cultures, they've had the experience of, famines are caused by mismanaging credit. It isn't a lack of food, it's the inability to buy things. And Germany is one of the best examples. Well, if you look at the expansion, the debauchement of the currency in Germany, and you look at what we've been doing to the dollar, they're about equal. We have defeated the real value of the dollar, and it's getting worse every month that goes by. And so somewhere along the way, now the reason we can pay our debts is because we can print more money, only as long as we are the world reserve currency. But there are at least 9 treaties already signed where Russia, Brazil, all the majors are finding ways to get out from under the U.S. dollar. And when the U.S. dollar is no longer recognized as the world reserve, our ability to pay our debts with just printing money will evaporate. Most people don't realize we get away with what we do because we enjoy this unique position of dealing in what's called the world reserve currency. But that's evaporating.
How long?
No one knows that answer. It can't be too far away for a lot of reasons. The Federal Reserve is running out of bullets. They want to keep the interest rate down because the interest is on that debt. So
Yeah.
But they're running out of games to play to keep that down. Somewhere along the way, there's going to be an implosion of consequence.